Black lives have not been taken seriously as being fully human.
Hey guys, you know what? America does not want to witness a food fight. They want to know how we're going to put food on their table. Yes? I think the American public has seen quite well that you are biased in this situation and you've not been objective, and that would arguably be the conflict of
Well, you know, I
interest.
haven't been the only decision maker here.
Growing up, my sister and I had to deal with the neighbor who told us her parents couldn't play with us because we were black. I do not believe you are a racist, and I agree with you when you commit yourself to the importance of finding common ground. But I also believe, and it's personal, and I was actually it was hurtful to hear you talk about the reputations of two United States senators who built their reputations and career on the segregation of race in this country. And it was not only that, but you also worked with them to oppose busing. And, you know, there was a little girl in California who was part of the second class to integrate her public schools. And she was bused to school every day. And that little girl was me. So I will tell you that on this subject, it cannot be an intellectual debate among Democrats. We have to take it seriously. People are working. They're working 2 and 3 jobs to put food on the table. In our America, nobody should have to work more than 1 job to put food on the table and have a roof over their head. Donald Trump, in office on trade policy, you know, he reminds me of that guy in The Wizard of Oz. You know, when you pull back the curtain, it's a really small dude.
Somebody
Sir,
came
I
up
have
to me.
just a few.
Well, you let me qualify it.
Okay.
If I don't qualify it, you'll accuse me of lying. So I need to be correct as best I can.
I do want you to be honest.
And I'm not able to be rushed this fast. It makes me nervous.
The reality of it is that we don't have to debate the point, which is that on average, women make 80 cents on the dollar to men. If you're talking about African-American women, it's 61 cents. If it's Latinas, it's 53 cents. So there is an obvious issue that we have around not only disparities, but fairness and equal pay for equal work. So let's get beyond that because it's not a debatable point. The question becomes, what are we going to do about it? And I think the goal, we would all agree, should be that people should be paid equally for equal work. But we haven't yet reached that point. We're going to have to create incentives to get there. So what I am proposing is that we shift the burden away from that working woman and instead onto that corporation to prove that they're paying people equally. You run the United States Department of Justice. If in any U.S. attorney's office around the country, the head of that office, when being asked to make a critical decision about, in this case, the person who holds the highest office in the land, and whether or not that person committed a crime, would you accept them recommending a charging decision to you if they had not reviewed the evidence?
Well, that's a question for Bob Mueller. He's the U.S. attorney. He's the one who presents the report.
But it was you who made the charging decision, sir.
What,
You made the decision not to charge the president.
no, in a Pross memo and in a declination memo,
You said it was your baby. What did you mean by that?
it was my baby to decide whether or not to disclose it to the public.
And whose decision was it? Who had the power to make the decision about whether or not the evidence was sufficient to make a determination of whether there had been an obstruction of justice?
Prosecution memos go up to the supervisor. In this case, it was the Attorney General and the Deputy Attorney General who decide on the final decision. And that is based on the memo as presented by the U.S. Attorney's Office.
I think you've made it clear that you've not looked at the evidence. We can move on. I think you've made it clear, sir, that you've not looked at the evidence, and we can move on.
On this very day, at this very hour, there is a memorial service to honor the life of George Floyd, who was murdered on a sidewalk by a police officer with a knee on his neck. For 8 minutes and 46 seconds, George Floyd pleaded for his life, called for his late mother, and said he could not breathe. The pain experienced not only by that man, that human being, and his family and his children, but the pain of the people of America witnessing what we have witnessed since the founding of this country, which is that the black lives have not been taken seriously as being fully human and deserving of dignity. And it should not require a maiming or torture in order for us to recognize a lynching when we see it, and recognize it by federal law and call it what it is, which is that it is a crime that should be punishable.